What is up, guys? I am the Senator, and today I'll be showing you how you should be playing our favorite depressed Korean man, Vigil. Let's get into it.
Like, seriously, guys, he's really depressed.
Okay, so in this video, not only will I be showing you how you should use Vigil and how you should run with Vigil, but I'll also be showing you which loadout you should run with Vigil. So first, let's take a look at his primaries. His primaries consist of the K1A and the Boss G. Now, out of those two primaries, I recommend that you run the K1A. It is a short-barreled assault rifle that does 36 damage with a fire rate of 720 rounds per minute. It's an easy gun to use with very controllable recoil. Now, on this gun, you can either run a vertical grip or an angled grip. Out of the two grips, you should try to run whatever you're most comfortable with. However, if you can control the recoil with the angled grip, that's the one you'll want to use. The reason being that while you're roaming, you want to be the first one to shoot, and the increased ADS time that the angled grip will give you will ensure that you're the first one to fire, giving you the upper hand in any gunfight. However, if you struggle with recoil, go with the vertical grip just to be safe. As far as sights go, you should use whatever you're most comfortable with. Now let's talk about the elephant gun, also known as the Boss G. This is a double-barrel shotgun that shoots slugs instead of the usual buckshot that you'd expect from most other operators. To be effective with this gun, you have to have precise aim. You only get 2 shots, and sometimes that first shot won't even down them, so only use a shotgun if you're confident with your aim. If your aim is a part of your game that you've been struggling with, please stay away from this gun. However, if you're brave enough to run the Boss G, I recommend that you run the angled grip. The reason being that the recoil is already ridiculous with the vertical grip, so I would rather take the ridiculous recoil if that means I can aim down sights and shoot my target faster than he can shoot me. As for what sights to run on the Boss G, it's, again, all about comfort. I mean, that is, unless Ubisoft decided to become really cool all of a sudden and decided to give us an ACOG on the Boss G.
I'm not joking, Ubi. Give me my Boss G ACOG.
As for his secondaries, just run whatever you're most comfortable with. However, if you're running the Boss G, I recommend that you run the C75 Auto instead of the SMG-12, being that you'll have an extra bit of range, which you may need. Other than that, run the SMG-12. That thing shreds at, like, what, 1,200 rounds a minute? That's ridiculous. Just use that. Okay, so before I show you how you need to play Vigil, first I need to show you how to roam. Now, these tips apply for all roamers, not just Vigil. So what's the purpose of a roamer and why are they needed? Well, roamers are designed to be the first line of defense against the attacking team. It is the roamer's job to keep the attackers away from the site as long as possible. Okay, so during the prep phase, after you've already put up your reinforcements, you need to take into consideration the different points of the building that the attackers will most likely come through. For example, on Bank there are 4 main points where you can usually expect to find attackers coming through. You can expect some to come through the front door, you can expect them to come through the window and open area, and the windows and stock trading room. And if you're playing basement, typically there will be an attacker that'll try to make his way through the garage. So if you're playing Bank and you're a roamer, typically it'd be best to go to one of them locations because it's very likely that you'll find an attacker try to make his way through that area. So when you start the round, think back to where you usually see attackers come through, or think back to where you usually come through while attacking that location. Thinking and playing in this way will usually result in you picking off at least one attacker within the first minute of the round. Another thing you need to remember when roaming is to be patient. What a lot of players do when they'll hear an enemy coming down the hallway is run into the hallway or peek the door into the hallway and try to take the attacker head on. Yes, it's likely that the attacker doesn't know that you're in there, but taking them head on runs a higher risk of you being killed. And so the reason I'm telling you that you need to be more patient when it comes to roaming and defending is because as a roamer and as a defender in general, you're automatically at a disadvantage when it comes to gunfights. Remember, the attacking team has more powerful rifles than you, and they'll have ACOGs. Okay, so you may be asking how to go about being patient when you need to take on an attacker. One important thing to keep in mind is not go into their line of sight, but wait until they come into your line of sight. So for example, you hear an attacker moving up the hallway towards you. Your immediate impulse is to peek the door into the hallway or run into the hallway and try to take them head on so you get the quick and easy kill. But the thing about doing that is it leaves you exposed and it gives you a higher chance of you getting shot and killed. So instead what you need to do is you need to wait on them. So when you're in the room and you hear them coming down the hallway, hold an angle on the doorway and wait until they come into your line of sight. In most cases they won't have a clue that you're in there. Lastly, as a roamer, you need to know when to get back to sight, and this is something that I see a lot of roamers struggle with, and it ends in the match being lost many times because roamers don't know when to get back to sight. Many times I'll be playing and I'll get into a 2v4 situation or a 2v5, and the roamer on my team will still be on the other side of the map. So you need to pay attention to what is going on, and when you hear attackers moving into the site, you need to get back to site and try to go around, flank them, and stop them from pushing in. Once they're making their way into the site, it is your job as a roamer to go on the offense, find out where they're pushing from, and take them out. And so these tips that I've just given you are tips that can be applied to any roamer that you decide to play. However, these next set of tips are designed specifically for playing Vigil. So Vigil's ability allows him to become cloaked whenever an enemy camera is on him. However, this doesn't mean that just because you're cloaked that the enemy team does not know where you're at. The way his ability works, yes, your image is erased from all the drone's view, but if the drone is within 12 meters of you, these white lines will show up on the drone's screen, alerting the attacking team that, hey, there's a Vigil nearby. So even though they won't know your exact location, they'll have an idea as to where you are. And so to use Vigil to his full potential, you should know when you should and when you should not be cloaked. Many of you may be thinking that since his image gets erased from drones and cameras, that it's best to have him cloaked constantly, but that is not the case at all. For example, if you see or you hear a drone coming towards you, it would typically be a good idea to use your cloak so that they cannot find your precise location. However, if, for example, you're hiding and you see a drone coming down the hallway towards you, and the drone is not going to go into the room that you're in, it is important that you do not use your cloak, because in that instance, they would know exactly where you are. They would know that there's a Vigil in that room. And them knowing where you are would completely defeat the purpose of you running Vigil in the first place. Another thing that you should keep in mind when playing Vigil is that it is typically a good idea to cloak whenever you're moving around the map and down the hallways and such. The reason being that moving throughout the map and down hallways, you're exposed, and so you want to limit that exposure as much as possible, and your cloak is a good way to do that. So it's typically a general rule to just always have that cloak on whenever you're roaming and moving around. One thing about Vigil that many players may not be aware of, specifically players that don't play Vigil much or people who are just now starting in the game, they don't realize that Vigil is a counter against Lion. Okay, so say you're playing Vigil and you know where an attacker is, and then the Lion on the other team decides to use his ability to try to find out where everybody is. So whenever Lion drops his drone, as a Vigil, what you need to do is turn on your cloak and start pushing the enemy. The reason you need to push them is because the enemy team is going to be looking for pings, and so they won't expect to push, and the fact that you'll be cloaked and they won't see the pings or know that you're coming gives you the advantage in that situation. Another thing that's great about Vigil is he can actually be a pretty decent anchor, especially when it comes to the last minute of the round. Now, I'm not saying that since you play Vigil that you need to start anchoring more. There's so many more operators that are better for anchoring. But in instances where, say it's a 2v4, 2v5, and you need to be on site, Vigil can do a very good job at holding down the site. The reason being that towards the end of the match, attackers will be on their drones more and try to find out where the last defenders are. And so Vigil's ability allows him to counter this. So when the attackers in the last minutes of the round are trying to find out where the last defender is, they won't be able to. All they'll know is that, hey, there's a Vigil in that room. We have no idea where he's at, but he's in there. So Vigil can be very helpful in those scenarios. Okay, so now the last tip I'm going to give you is that Vigil isn't always the best roamer that you should be playing. Don't get me wrong, Vigil's a great roamer with a very unique and great ability. However, if you want to roam, I recommend that you choose a Jaeger way before you decide to take a Vigil. The reason being that Jaeger's guns are just as good as Vigil's, and Jaeger's ability allows him to be useful even after he dies. His ability allows him to defend the point with his ADSs, and he has the ability to roam, just as Vigil. So I recommend that before you decide to take a Vigil, make sure that your team has a Jaeger. I know Vigil is an operator that's been out for some time now, but these are tips that I've never seen anywhere else on YouTube, and I feel like these tips could be very helpful to those who decide to play Vigil, or those who want to become better at roaming. And so that about does it. If you would like to support my channel, remember to hit that subscribe button, or go to my Instagram or Twitch. Links will be in the description. Let me know in the comments if you found this video helpful, or just give me your thoughts and opinions, because I love getting feedback from you guys. So I'll see you guys later, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye, guys.